report is a couple of weeks old, but the shockwaves are still rattling through Washington, D.C. with the resignation of Rod Rosenstein and William Barr before the Senate. Ed Blakely is a former Washington insider now living in Sydney, Australia. My name is Sean Britton from the radio station 2SER. Find us every week on iTunes, Whooshkaa, Facebook and Twitter at US of Ed. Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, officially on his way out following handling of the Mueller investigation. Noted in his departure the need for respect of the rule of law and a Justice Department free from political influence. First thoughts, Ed?
Well, he's just saying what he should say. The Justice Department has been plagued by political interference from the president and from all of those people who surrounded him, and even from the Congress. So let's get the Justice Department back to doing justice and not playing politics. That's what he needed to say on his way out. And I think he's actually been a really upstanding man, and we should congratulate him for what he did. If we don't like the outcome, that's one thing, but he took the right course.
William Barr has appeared before the Senate to talk about his handling of the Mueller report. Have we learned anything?
No, not much, except he's defending himself for what he had to say. Obviously, Mueller doesn't entirely agree with him. Mueller thinks he underplayed a lot of important critical things, including the fact the president meddled so much that you could call him obstructing justice. Furthermore, he underplayed the role the Russians actually played in determining the election. That is big news and shouldn't have been underplayed. So the summary actually was a political document and not an accurate reflection of what the document said. And most people are only going to hear the summary, and he knows that.
As you say, Mueller disagreeing with Barr's findings such as they were, also resisting a similar appearance before the House of Reps. How does a public servant like Barr, how is it meant to be he just denies the opportunity to face public scrutiny?
Well, he can do that for a very short time, and then he can be subpoenaed. And it doesn't matter who you are, unless you're the president of the United States. If you're subpoenaed, you better appear. He will appear, for sure, or he won't be Attorney General anymore.
Speaking of which, the Trump administration has vowed to fight every subpoena sent their way, still suing to block the release of tax returns. Weren't Republicans the party of personal responsibility or some such at some point in their history?
Let's see, I'm trying to remember that point. I think it was back a couple of years ago when a guy named Bush was president. Not that long ago. This is the first time we've had a president actually define the laws of the land, and let's hope it's the last time.
Turning to the news this week, and police officer Mohammed Noor found guilty of third-degree murder in the death of Australian woman Justine Demond. A terrible case, one that raises a lot of questions about other officer-involved shootings, I think you might say, Ed.
No, I don't think so. Let me give you a different kind of picture here. Noor was a victim and a policeman. He's a victim of basically his homeland, his upbringing, where bombs were going off all the time. His life was in jeopardy all of the time. And when he heard that long bang on the back of his vehicle, he thought he was being threatened and overreacted. Now, there's no excuse for his overreaction. I'm not trying to apologize for him. But I am saying the notion of trauma does not have to be a person who's been in a battle. It's a person who's been under extreme stress for a very long time. The sentence, the findings were all just. But what I think we have to think about is when we put people in jobs like a police officer, we have to look not at their current ability to answer a few questions, but the past that they've had that might lead them to committing acts you don't expect.
Just taking a step backwards from that one, though, and taking Noor's background out of it even, I know a lot of Australians are are a little bit stunned when they see the likes of police making a routine traffic stop with their hand resting on the butt of their gun. Now, this is because American police officers, given the lay of the land over there in America, the gun laws over there in America, it is a case where every traffic stop is treated like a potential threat, a potentially deadly threat. So this is one of the ways, regardless of his background or not, one of the ways all American police officers seem to be facing that day by day.
That's exactly right. And it's unfortunate. They've now been trained like military people. That training started a little over a decade ago, where police officers are sent to Quantico, military base, Marine base, and trained in the same way that Marines are trained to shoot to kill. That's an unfortunate thing that's happening in America. And hopefully, if we get rid of guns, we should have all police officers be unarmed first. It works in England. It works a lot of places. It can work again. Let's get the guns out of police hands. They seldom need them, and having them is just making things worse.
The latest out of Venezuela, Cuba now being accused of propping up Maduro, and Trump threatening a full and complete embargo and sanctions on Cuba if they don't lay up. What's going on?
Well, this is all talk. The Cuban sanctions have been lifted, but not that much. Cuba is still in very bad condition. And Trump is just trying to say, I'm doing something. What he'd really like to do is have some sort of American involvement. But because of the previous American involvements in that area of the world, that's not in the cards. But let's hope that someone will bring Maduro to his senses. This cannot go on. And whether this man is the justifiable leader of the country is a little bit unclear and murky. But it is clear that Maduro is no longer enjoying the support of his people, of his Congress, and even some members of the military. He has to go so Venezuela can be saved.
Meanwhile, after a chat with President El-Sisi of Egypt, President Trump is pushing to declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. Experts say the Muslim Brotherhood doesn't match that definition. Any thoughts on this one, Ed?
Interesting enough, I had a discussion with a person from Egypt just yesterday. And the Brotherhood has, let's say 15,000 members in a nation that has almost 100 million people. They're a bit of a toothless tiger, but since they're like the Black Panthers in the United States, they can cause a lot of damage if they want to. And they're terrorists because they are people who are outside the system. This is something that's going to go on there. It doesn't matter what Trump does at this point. This is an Egyptian problem. And he's not going to penalize Egypt for having the Brotherhood, but the Brotherhood does need to be defanged, as it were. And the only way that'll happen is if Egypt runs an honest, clean, fair government. I think they're on the way to doing so.
Also, a new deal on NAFTA. Trump's attempts to rewrite the North American Free Trade Agreement has caused bipartisan blowback. No one wants what Trump has been trying to sell this week.
NAFTA is a bittersweet pill. The United States is caught in a very interesting situation where the agreements with Canada and Mexico mean that the United States is very much dependent on the manufacturing in Canada and the fruits and vegetables from Mexico to just continue as a nation. So the Congress people understand that, and what Trump wants to do would undercut the possibility of these agreements continuing. So the Congress is trying to say, hold on, Mr. President, let's get this train back on the rail and sure, pull back on a few things like putting in environmental regulations, making sure wages are similar to the United States, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And rather an apt term, because I wish we didn't have to talk about this, but I think we do. Circling back on Trump telling outrageous lies when it comes to late-stage abortion this week, claiming at a rally the baby is born, the mother meets with the doctor, they take care of the baby, they wrap the baby beautifully, and then the doctor and the mother determine whether or not they will execute the baby. I don't really have to say, not stretching the truth on this one, this is straight out of some twisted alternative universe. Could it lead to more violence? Yeah, it is.
Because first, the scene is so horrible and horrific. It doesn't exist anywhere. No doctor who's taken the oath would do this. This is the kind of thing that's done in torture camps and the like, and hasn't been done in this part of the 20th century. When Trump raises the specter, the unfortunate thing, no matter how big or deep a lie it is, there are some people who are going to repeat it. That's the really scary thing. The man is a fear and a scaremonger, and the sooner we get a president who actually speaks intelligently and for the American people and not against some of them, the better off we'll be.
We've also seen this week Trump surpass 10,000 false or misleading claims made since he took over as president, according to fact checkers. This latest on abortion, I saw it asked, how is his mental state not a national emergency right now if this is what he believes or is willing to have his supporters believe?
Well, let's put this in context a little bit here. The U.S. economy is doing very well. In spite of all his gyrations back and forth, up and down and around, the Congress seems to be reaching an equilibrium. The Senate is not passing everything he sends up. The House is not crazy on the left. They're asking for reasonable things. The country is beginning to run fairly well. So he is a sideshow. Let's not give him that much attention, because if we do, we give him power.
And the 2020 campaign to get dirty, Pete Buttigieg this week accused of sexual improprieties. This was immediately withdrawn. The accusations, it turns out, made on behalf of an unwilling, clueless young man who quickly stopped them on behalf of a couple of, done by a couple of Republican, I believe they're calling them provocateurs. Ed, how dirty is this campaign going to get?
I don't think you've seen the low yet. There's going to be a lot of stuff that goes lower, and it's going to go right after Biden and Kamala Harris. It's going to be really dirty and nasty. And the lies you mentioned, the 10,000 lies, play a part here, because people have grown used to using lies as a vehicle to punish, to destroy, and to turn the political card. So we're going to see a lot more of it coming. I think it'll be mostly from these agent provocateurs. It won't be from the traditional Republicans or Democrats. But when it happens, they won't say no to it if it favors them.
US of Ed is produced in the studios of 2SER in Sydney. Help support the work we do by going to 2ser.com/support. Ed and I'll be back next week to talk the latest in US news and politics. Subscribe on iTunes and Whooshka to stay up to date and show us some love.